Hello, Manu. Thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
So I go to Clarendon. I'm a junior at the moment. I have a fair amount of interest. I'm very keen into like mathematics generally around that. I also enjoy doing research projects and for sports, I play tennis, but more academically, I enjoy mathematics.
What do you remember when you got interested in math? Was it a particular person or a particular problem or something like that that really
It,
caught
it
your
was
attention?
it's a little fun. It's more like I at a young age I didn't really like my other subjects, English, social studies. Math, I kind of found a flow to it and it was more therapeutic for me than, other subjects. Because once you understand it, it's so easy to do, right? So I would say I was decent at understanding mathematics, and after some point, you know, doing math and just really doing that and finding, problems about that, it interests me a lot. So yeah.
My undergrad degree actually is in mathematics
Oh,
as
wow.
well, so I really like that. Uh, yeah. But have you ever had like a math problem that you initially thought was extremely hard, but then you looked at it in a different way and it became extremely easy?
So I remember this. It was a very, very simple thing. It was algebra. When algebra got to introduce me, I thought it was impossible. I was like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. I can't do this. I'm gonna give up. And then, as it first got introduced, everyone was fairly confused, but me in that class could just not figure it out. And then at one point, I was watching TV. It was some like, Nickelodeon show, And then I don't really remember the exact show, but they showed like a trick where, like that you move X, you have X in the equation, you move X to somewhere. And I just had like a whole, like, your mind explodes. It was kind of like that, right? So I go back to my homework that was overdue by like a few days because I just couldn't do it. And I completely understood. And I found algebra a lot more fun because of that. It kind of just completely opened up my mind. And I gave math like a lot more chances than I would have if I didn't understand it before. And before that, I didn't really like math. It started off since I would say that like fifth grade point for me, where I was like, wow, moving stuff around on a piece of paper and like understanding it and it gets somewhere. It's pretty fun to me. And I just started getting into that.
What areas of math have you explored so far? You mentioned algebra, I guess calculus as well. How about like abstract algebra?
So I enjoy number theory. It's a weird concept, but basically my dad had a friend and he would constantly come over babysit us and he would just be like talking about random things, and he actually did a major in math also. And he would talk about like how string of numbers, binary codes and all that. And like the idea, there's this one theory of numbers where it's like ones and zeros, binary code, and you can list an infinite amount. And there's only one set that is not in that group of binary codes. It's really interesting. It's gonna take it's a little complicated and it takes a long time to explain. I don't want to go on a tangent about that, but that one theorem, has interested me for a pretty long time actually. And it's basically about the randomness of how you think of a number, and can you truly think of a random number? It's more like philosophical, I'd say, but it's something I've like really, really enjoyed looking at. And sometimes I even read it for fun when I have time.
Um, do you see yourself doing advanced mathematics, like going further and this
It
being the focus
like into college, you mean?
in college and research and all that?
Yeah, I think around when I get into like something around like I don't want to go directly into mathematics and have that as my I want to do like research something that includes statistics, or it includes math but it also includes another topic that I can look into, like medical topics, or even something about space, doing statistics for that. That seems like it's a little weird, but it seems like a fun idea to me, and having a mix of that is like I think one of my dream jobs that I would like love to have in the future and go into.
Yeah, I was listening to something on the way into work today, and it was about advanced civilizations being able to find each other in the cosmos. And apparently, I mean, as far as we can tell, we haven't detected anybody out there. And one thought is that by the time you invent like radio or something that's detectable at a distance, and the time your civilization ends is probably very short in like the
Yeah.
cosmic scale of things. So you have like these little civilizations popping up and disappearing, and like no two of them are like close enough at the same time to actually detect and interact with each other. And it was talking about how do
Wow.
you create like some type of monument that says, hey, I was here, so that other people can at least know that you did exist. And it was suggesting maybe putting like these panels around the sun. They would be in orbit that would basically emit a certain pattern, and like
Oh,
indefinitely, like for
so
millions
you
and
can
billions
meet,
of years. Yeah.
yeah, and you can meet like extraterrestrial life. You can see that other life really exists and basically have proven it with that radio frequency. Is that?
Well, with the kind of like the dimming and brightening of the sun as
Oh,
seen from the other, I mean, it'd be like very small, you'd like huge panels producing like maybe 0.5% drop in the visible light of the star, but enough of a pattern that people are like it couldn't occur naturally. So anyway.
that's phenomenal. Where did you say you heard that?
Well, it was in this audiobook I was listening to. I mean, it's called A Thousand Brains. It was actually talking about intelligence and the rise of intelligence. And this was just in the Ford, where it was proposing this idea.
So it was like a true possibility that, we can connect with extraterrestrial. That concept is always just like that would like I love it, having like because the universe is infinite, right? There's I think there is 100% chance that there is other life out there, like cosmos, like so far away. But that like whole idea is just amazing to me. There's like other people completely different. We don't even know what their lifestyle is, and having that whole idea that there's something out there. It's amazing to me.
I wanted to ask you a few questions about the moon. I guess first off, did you know that NASA is planning to send astronauts back to the moon?
I read about, so before I came into Zinder, I did read about that. I really had no idea before I got introduced to your website, but it's that that's like I'm speechless. That just sounds amazing. Sending people back to the moon, and after so long, after it's been dimmed down for so much, I think it can really open up a lot more research, and the material we have today can help us understand the moon better, and a lot more stuff about it.
I've interviewed about 1,600 people so far, and I haven't kept exact figures yet. But I've interviewed people at Starbucks and people just walking down the street and all that good stuff. And I would say about 80% of them have no clue that we're going back to the moon until, I kind of asked them
Wow.
about it. And I was wondering why you think that might be. Because in like the 1960s, I think everybody knew we were going to the moon. And like now, I think almost nobody does unless you actually are interested in it.
Yeah, I feel like in the 1960s, going to the moon was a very um new concept. And I really think that, going to the moon is something crazy. Like outside of Earth, it's, it could have blown people's minds. But nowadays, space travel and, just like sending robots out to space is very common, and I guess people that doesn't really grab people's attention anymore. And with NASA doing this, I feel like nuke technology could be just huge with like going to the moon and sending people back to the moon. It could really we can find a lot more, a lot of new things.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting thing. I mean, I gotta imagine like the first airplane ride was like amazing, but now people, you know, go to the airport and complain about, not having enough peanuts on
Yeah.
the plane or whatever.
It's so weird. It's like, even like the first car, first plane, it's like such a monumentous occasion that's now been so normalized where everyone does it. And even space travel, I feel like that will be normalized at some point in the next, I don't know how long, it could be centuries, but space travel being normalized. Some people would be complaining about going to the moon in time, like you never know what could happen.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting, I think. But so, you sound pretty excited about us going back to the moon. If you were to have to talk to somebody else about why we're doing it, what's some of the things that you would tell them?
Of why I feel like I would just tell them about, new opportunities and just being able to research about something and like firsthand experience of, why we're doing it and having, because there's a lot of people nowadays have gotten a lot better at research, and with the modern technology and the modern stability we have now, being able to go to the moon would be just a new opening for a lot of new opportunities for people, and just we could engage a lot more with new things. I don't know. It's just like, the moon is such a big concept to me. And we don't really know. We know what it does with the tides and all that, but like having a true idea of what type of, material, what type of material is inside. There's so many different things that could be going on in the moon. And I feel like that one reason for finding out more, I think if someone told me that we're finding out more by going to the moon, I would be, satisfied just going there at any time.
When you think about the future of humanity, if you were to look out like 200 years in the future, do you think we have people living their lives on the moon and Mars and other places? I mean, how far do you think we get in 200 years?
I would say some planets I don't think should not be inhabited. Gas planets. I don't find going into gas planets that, fun. But you said next 200 years, right?
Hmm.
So I feel like I really think traveling back and like, going to the moon and back is basically like a plane ride to a different country. I feel like it'll be so normalized going to different planets, and you never know how society will turn out. I could be completely wrong, but I really feel like space travel will be such like a regular thing that people do on a daily basis, that it's a way of travel, going on rocket ships and having, there's going to be a lot new technology, and rockets that are so focused on and have to work so correctly could be something that we could manufacture normally and send people back and forth to find new things, do more research. But I feel like it won't be, people will still be looking into it and researching the planet than civilizations being there.
That that is interesting. I sometimes think whenever I ask people about what do you think could happen in 200 years, it becomes too much exercise and prediction than one of hope. I think I should ask people, where do you want us to be in 200 years? Maybe that would be an easier question.
I would like both questions. They kind of aim toward the same things, but it's the future's inevitable. You never know, not inevitable. It's unpredictable. You never know what's gonna happen. You never know with chaos. There could be wars in space for all we know. But I really, really, you were obviously not gonna be alive that far out, but I really want space travel to be normalized as something that we can do at any time. And if you have the right, if you have the right, whenever it's like a passport, like something like that, something that a type of identification where you can, give it to someone, you take a rocket to the moon or Mars or something like that, and come back and be like, hey, I found this. It's just a theory of mine, but
And that's awesome. If you could, would you take a trip to space?
oh, 100%. It's always, it just, it it's crazy to me, like whole different gravity, whole different, you know everything's like different up there, the gravity, the what, like the movement, like what you have to wear, what you have to put on, all of it, and going and being able to look at the planet of 8 billion people, looking at Earth and being like, hey, this is where I used to be, and being on a whole different, it's like surreal to me. And it's been a huge, huge dream of mine to be an astronaut. And everyone wants to be an astronaut at the start of the age, but I've tried to continue it, and I'm trying to like aim for places that can, support space travel, but 100% I would. I wouldn't even hesitate.
How far would you go?
Uh, I would say depending on where technology is, I want to go to like a whole different planet. The moon is like super cool to me. If, if we don't go to the moon, sure, I'll go to the moon. But I really, really want to hit a different planet, like a whole different planet, like, mainly Mars. The red planet's like interesting to me, because we're already looking into travel there. And going to a different planet, it would just be like another stretch that would just blow my mind. And eventually having, life there and like us, humans colonizing it would be even better. We can spread out our whole span of life.
So if they start a Mars settlement and they're like, "Hey, we need people to come and settle here," you would sign up.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's a huge change, and change can be a lot for a person. But I wouldn't like move to Mars. I mean, that's too much for me. But I would 100%, if I'm able to, I would go there, see how it is, and come back 100%.
How likely do you think it is for you to travel to space, even like to low Earth orbit or one of these suborbital trips in your lifetime?
I like from like academia stance or like from personal.
You personally, like, do you think you'll get a chance to go to space?
I want to say hopefully, but it really depends on where I continue in life. If I have a huge passion for it still, you never know. Ideas can change and passion can change for people for what they want. And if I change my mindset of going to space, then but for now, I'm pretty confident about it because I still love it. And I watch space movies all the time. I read about it. And whenever, if I have nothing else to do, if I can't do anything, I'll just look at the universe and see how much there is in the universe. But I really, really want, hopefully I can, and hopefully I have a good chance of doing it. I can't really give like an exact yes or no, but hopefully.
Now, I sometimes get asked, why I do these interviews, and I think of them in the context of somebody just like yourself, but 200 years in the future, maybe doing a research project on what it was like during this transformational decade, right before space travel became common, like you were talking about. Can you imagine a high schooler or a college person writing a research paper about this time period? And what do you think would be key for them to know?
Just how we have like someone in the future writing about 2024 and like this, like I would how we developed and what we've really, focused on with like the writing research about space travel. I would say like it's just how we developed and what new advancements we have made at this moment to support space travel. Because at the end of the year, people are going to space that would definitely go on their research and saying, hey, look at this. Space travel was like this now, and now it's like something completely different. I think the research will include the differentiation between our time and their time, and just what was normalized when we go to space compared to then.
That makes sense. Well, Manu, that's all the questions I had. Unless you had something you wanted to add or questions for me, we could wrap it up here.
I did have a question. It was mainly about what brought you the idea to interview people? Was it like, I think you kind of went over this, but like what was like the true like passion for interviewing like a bunch of people for this project?
Yeah, I think in the broader context, I feel like the 2020s are going to be a transformational decade with regards to space travel. So far, we've not had a 100% reusable system that could get you to space, which means that some part of the system is thrown away and has to be rebuilt, which means that the same economics that apply to, say, air travel or using a car or stuff isn't applied to space because you're not able to take the cost of the vehicle and amortize it over a whole bunch of uses. But with SpaceX developing Starship, they are aiming to develop such a vehicle where you would only have to pay for the fuel, and then you could do, thousands of trips with the same Starship, and the cost of
Yeah.
building the ship gets, kind of spread out over those uses. So, I mean, SpaceX is talking about, you know, having a single Starship do multiple launches to space per day, and about building two of them a week. And whenever you start doing the math on that, you're talking about literally hundreds and thousands of space trips, in a year.
Yeah.
And I mean, the last time we went to the moon was 1972. And, when NASA announced they were going to send astronauts to the surface of the moon by 2024, it's been postponed to like 2026, I think now, probably closer to 2027, a lot of people think. It seemed like a good context to work within. And then on top of that, there was this associate administrator, Doug Laverio, who in 2019, he was in charge of trying to get us to the moon by the end of 2024. And then he had like a lapel pin where he was counting down the days. So, he wanted to keep everybody focused. You have 1,840 days,
Yeah.
1,839, and he was going around NASA highlighting a NASA person a day. And so the combination of sort of like those three levels of thinking led to this project. And even though the dates moved, I'm still counting down to the end of 2024. So half the decade of the 2020s, I would have captured at least one view a day of all different walks
Yeah.
of life, from people that work in the space industry to people who have no interest in it, to people who are for it, to people who are against it, old people, young people. And then since I originally was going to do all these interviews in person, but within a few months of starting the project, COVID lockdowns happened, and I had to
Overhead.
start doing them
Yeah.
online. And so that really opened up to interviewing people literally all over the world. I think I've interviewed somebody from every continent except Antarctica, and I still have like 100 days to fix that, I guess.
You never know, someone living in that icy place could be like, hey, I want to go to the moon too. It's such a broad concept and it's such an amazing concept. And I'm really happy you're doing these interviews. And, it opens my eyes to some more information too, and a lot of other people.
Yeah, it's interesting. After mentioning about Antarctica, the people living in Antarctica are probably living in the closest conditions of somebody that would be living on Mars.
Yeah, they have like the most experience, right?
Yeah, exactly. A cold environment, very remote. Yeah, so that might be a. I should set that as a goal. And within the next 100 days, I have to find somebody in Antarctica.
I'm very confident you can, like anything could happen, right? So someone that's Antarctica, and I believe that like I feel like Antarctica is its own planet. It's so much different than every single spot in the world. So, someone could say, hey, I could know how it feels to be in space. It's kind of like Antarctica.
Absolutely, definitely good practice and cheaper, much cheaper than sending them to Mars and then finding out they don't like it.
Yeah. All right, this
Well, anyway, thank you so much again. It was such a pleasure to get to talk to you, and I'm glad that you're a part of my project.
thank you. Yeah, I wish the best for you.
Well, take care.
You too.